Okay, so on this video, I'm going to show you how to solve absolute value inequalities. Remember when we did absolute value equations, we broke it into two equations. So we're going to do the same thing here. Our first one is going to be v minus 6 is less than or equal to 3. And then with inequalities, I like to say change the sign and change the sign. So we're going to do v minus 6, and we're going to change the less than sign to greater, and we're going to change the 3 from positive to negative. In the book, it will show you to change the sign of what's inside the absolute value. So it'll have negative v minus 6 is less than or equal to 3. So you end up with negative v plus 6 is less than or equal to 3, which is negative v less than or equal to negative 3. And then when you divide by negative 1, you get v is greater than or equal to positive 3. If you change the sign and change the sign, you don't have to go through all that. So then when you add 6 to both sides, you get v is greater than or equal to 3. So for most students, it's easier to change the sign to less than or greater than and change the sign from positive to negative. Then over here, when you add 6 to both sides, you get v is less than or equal to 9. So then when you graph it, you've got a 3 and a 9, closed dot, closed dot. If it's bigger than 3 and smaller than 9, then it's in between. So anytime you have a less than or less than or greater than, you're going to shade in between. It's like an and statement, and so you're going to shade in between two numbers. If you have greater than or equal to, it's an or statement, and you'll end up shading out on the end. So that's just a heads up. When you look at a problem, you can tell what your answer should look like. You really don't even need to know that because your answer should turn out that way. Okay, so let's do one with a couple of steps in it. So if I have one like this, you've got negative 8x minus 10 is greater than or equal to 14. And then leave the negatives in there. Some students want to get rid of the negatives because it's absolute value, but leave it in there. It's part of the equation. But then change the sign to less than and change the 14 to negative. And then just work it normally. So add 10 to both sides. So you get negative 8x is greater than or equal to 24. Divide by a negative, so you have to flip the sign from greater than to less than. Add 10 to both sides here. You get negative 8x is less than or equal to negative 4. Make sure you divide by the number on the letter, not just automatically divide by the smaller number. So that gives you x. I'm dividing by a negative 8, so I change it, and then this is positive 1/2. So when you go to graph that, you've got a negative 3, a 1/2, closed dot, bigger than a half, smaller than negative 3. And so see, that fits our pattern. If it's greater than, it's out on the ends. Okay, that should show you how to do the problems in the assignment. On these, you'll also have a couple that you need to look at logically. You're going to have some no solutions or some all real numbers. So if you have something like this where you have an absolute value that's greater than a negative number, you need to think, okay, this is a positive number no matter what. So what positive numbers are greater than negative 11? Well, all of them are. So this is all real numbers. I just worked this one out, but if you have something like this, like we were showing that if you work it out, you get something that looks logical. So if you look at it from the very beginning, you've got some positive number is less than or equal to negative 9. And no matter what positive number you pick, it's not less than or equal to a negative number. So this is no solution. We just had somebody ask, well, what if you work it out? You get something that looks logical, but even if you pick numbers in those sections and you plug it back in, like we picked a 10, and because 10 is bigger than 2, it looks like it should work. So you get the absolute value of 25, which is not smaller than negative 9. So look for no solutions and all real numbers.